chơi. Ủa yeah, cái gì chơi遊戲好唔好？冇啦，係咪 A 晒㗎
？You still remember there's another. I'm very excited.
Oh,
you start typing your program. Another one.
不如俾一個字啦，呢個代表乜嘢？係啊係啊。呢個應該點啊？你話咧呢個係咩嚟啊？邊個嚟嘅先？我知啊。你打個名啦，會有嘅。
So what happens then? Instead of taking the color, he took a face of himself. So what he could do is that he matched the face with his name. So ask him to type his name.
Oh, okay.
Please.
And even string it, I don't know, I never did that before, but somehow you know that you can make it all that. A lot of talking, a lot of activity, but they are engaging.
Preview. Play game.
Okay, the matrix, right? They are all boxes. Now they can click on it and they try to match what they have done. Yellow. Yeah, remember, okay? So they have to search for the game that match and remember where it's located in the game. Yellow. Okay? You get the idea? Okay, good. Alright, thank you for watching. I think the question there, yeah? Another session.
Actually, Samuel and I were wondering, is there a Chinese input method also, like by handwriting, or does it support Chinese handwriting input?
Not writing, but typing, yes.
Typing. Oh,
yeah.
So using
Yeah, because in one of one of those computers there's a Sichuan version, whereby when we deployed it in Sichuan, actually some of the kids were actually typing in Chinese.
Oh,
yeah. So they could actually type yellow, or whatever.
Okay.
So that's actually an important thing that you're raising. We loaded a set of activities and a language onto the laptops, but there's still a lot of tailoring that we would want to do for the pilot site. So they may have other activities that they want to load. We may want to load Chinese language capabilities. You know, that revision continues.
Okay. Another question is the on two sides of the touchpad, just curious what these two areas are for. Are they also touch sensitive, or are they used at all?
They were part of the R&D process, but they ultimately were not used in the final product. So the EXO 1.5 and 1.75, they do not have the two sides. They were going to be used for stylus.
We have the experimental version.
Yeah,
okay.
But with the EXO 1.0, actually the touchpad can be used. The tree can be used.
Oh,
yeah, it can be. And there's a part of that one because sometimes the fingers is very difficult to move it. Right? You get dirty, dust, and it's wet.
Okay.
Think about people in the jungle or somewhere where it's very humid, right? So what they have is a click whereby you click it, it becomes like you have to use a stylus mode. There's a stylus mode there. Actually use it.
Once an older version of EXO is being distributed, will we get to update the software?
Yes, absolutely. So there are software updates that you could just load when you're connected to the internet. There are software updates both for the operating system and then for the activities themselves.
So they can do it themselves?
They can do it themselves, yeah. And they do. They get on the website and they actually download activities themselves. The Peruvian kids have crashed the website on numerous occasions when new activities have been released. There's so many students in that country who have them, so.
You have the 2 days program.
That's right.
These 2 days, I like to know your experience. What do you feel the difference of the kids on the first day compared with the second day when you got this?
That is such a great point. That's actually something that I was going to point out when TK showed the 2 different videos. It was like we were working with different students on day 2. We came in, they immediately turned on the laptops, they were sneaking around the exos and looking at other activities that they had used. They had favorite activities. You know, the first day, just as an example, with the memory activity, they were just playing demo games, you know, on that activity. But we had them create their own the second day. And
another question. Probably, you had this only like the first chance you did in Hong Kong, right?
That's right. Yes.
What is your experience in back in the U.S. My actual question is, after a few months, what do kids feel about it? Because the first 1-2 days, of course, something new, and curious. I like it, I love it. But what happens after 3 months, 6 months? Is it still going to be the same?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, there's probably a little bit less enthusiasm since it is brand new in the beginning. It's more of an enabler at that point. It's like, how can the EXO help me to do my work or do my homework faster and better? And then I think the kids start exploring other activities and have maybe favorite games and stuff that they like to do in free time. In terms of the school setting, though, I would say that it becomes much more of an enabler. There's not as much experimentation going on with it, I think. So there was a lot of chaos the second day. As you heard, there are a lot of people talking, there's a lot of activity, a lot of engagement. All of that is fantastic, but I think it calms down a little bit later from what we've seen in our classrooms.
I mean, one other point to add to that, 3 months down the line, you can start to incorporate more complicated activities and introduce the mesh network in a new way, which is group assignments. And so having students interact with one another by virtue of building projects, of editing work, of adding in and expanding. It's a version of Google Docs at a much younger age. And so that idea of collaboration and editing and incorporating different elements into, I think that's another thing that we saw in all of our Boston pilot sites, the fact that there was so much more collaboration that was happening, and so kind of moving beyond that individual way of engaging with the task was enormously useful, and we got that feedback both from students and from teachers.
So it pretty much depends on whether this will be the continuous activities based on this platform.
Yeah, and I think it's about making, and Caitlin was saying this, making the EXO an extension of the pencil, making it streamlined, making it so natural, a natural part of the classroom that it's a supplement. It's not an EXO hour out of my school day. It's a tool. It's an enabler. So we found that, and we were very lucky to find that in our sites, and so we hope to see that 3 months down the line, 4 months down the line when we're hoping to come back.
Okay. Now, also another thing is we know that every day the computers is getting second, third generation very fast.
Yeah.
Now we have the tablets and iPad and things. When the student maybe first time he got this, so very very good. But then a few months later, half a year later, a year later, they got another device, which is obviously more powerful, and then suddenly open the whole world. Then what's changed? You experience such kind of change with the kids. And what happens?
So do you just mean switching technology? So 6 months down the line, if there is a newer edition?
I would say yes and no, because normally you don't really want to switch the technology. But the point is they probably get the family buy them a tablet later, a year later.
Yeah.
That things change. And when the kids get onto the tablet, they probably forget this one.
Yeah. No, and Kevin, if you want.
I'll try to answer this one. My name's Kevin. I'm a volunteer at OLPC Asia, and your question about new technology. Every 6 months there is new technology, and that's given. Our focus with this OLPC deployment is not so much into the hardware, but more into the education aspect of it. So even if you change like the kids right now, they're all at home. They have their own laptops or computers, and they're also exposed to different smartphones. Living in Hong Kong, these smartphones are far more advanced than our XO1s, but it still appeals to these kids because not because of the hardware, but the activities that is being incorporated into the classroom, the collaboration, level of collaboration between students. That's what appeals to them in cities like Hong Kong, students, and yeah. So that's why there's a return value for these students, and that's why and that's our focus, the education, the activities, not the hardware.
And I know that we mentioned this earlier, but the fact that you're able to, with this open source software, with the way that Sugar is handled, upgrades are free, and you're able to download those on your XO, so it becomes less about the hardware in a setting like Hong Kong especially, and more about the activities that you can download onto the machine.
Any more questions? Because we're yes.
Sorry, I'll
That's
just
good. More questions the better. We are fine. I'm very impromptu.
Thanks. I just have two quick questions. My first question is, do a group of volunteers fundraise for the laptops?
Good question.
As in how do you
where do the fundings come from? And the second question is, in regards to curriculum, do a group of people develop them from time to time, and do they keep updating the curriculum, or is it like set out, and like how do you develop the curriculums? Yeah.
Sure. So with DigiLit specifically, we have committees within our team, and so there's one committee that's specifically devoted to education and curriculum development, and there's another committee that's focused on fundraising. And so to take the first part of your question, like how does the fundraising happen for this? It's a combination of different things. So the first was community sponsors, and that ranged from people who had purchased a laptop through the Give One Get One program who wanted to give back into the network. So they had used it for a few months or a year, but they wanted their laptop to go to better use. They would donate their laptops, and so we had several that came to our organization by way of Give One Get One. And secondly, several grants and other foundations provided us with financial support that we were able to feed back into our program in order to build our technology base and facilitate programs. And as we said, like one laptop per child in Australia has been extremely helpful, both in an ideas capacity, so being able to circulate different ways to expand XO, and also in a hardware capacity. So they have since transitioned to the 1.5, and so their set of first generation XOs were then donated to our organization, and we've been able to use it in subsequent deployments. So fundraising is like it's putting several puzzle pieces together, and it's not all from one source. As Caitlin mentioned, we're very lucky to also be under the Harvard umbrella, which means that there's a lot of funding available through the university, and so we've capitalized upon that as well. And there are other competitions that we've entered, entrepreneurship competitions that have been extremely helpful as well on a funding level. Are there any other financing things I'm forgetting before I go into the second part? Sure.
We actually ended up winning Harvard's business plan competition, so that provided a lot of the seed funding, and then we used that to kind of expand the organization. It was a springboard, so to speak.
And so, this would you quickly remind the second half of your?
The second question was about the curriculum.
Yeah, of course. Okay. So, I mean, that's the biggest thing. When we first started this organization, we noticed that there were a dearth of online sources to be able to find lessons, and we wanted to just get a sense of what are you doing in Peru versus in Australia versus in whatever deployment site, and so we wanted to find some sort of online database where you kept all that, and so that's a project that we have put on hold, but was very important to us. But in terms of our curriculum development, we felt like we were kind of building from the ground up, and so for us, that meant a lot of having to pilot lessons in the classroom, refine, rewrite, and so our education committee would develop these types of lessons. We would deploy them in the classroom, see what worked, what didn't, what other ways we could, find a hybrid approach to include as many activities in one lesson as possible, and then we would refine it. And so now on our website, you can find a listing of all of our lessons, and also we've created demos for the activities as well, and that's a part of our teacher training process as well. Do you want to add anything to that? Or?
Sorry, just one more question.
Yeah, please.
Are the laptops on like a charity basis? Like, do you give them for the students, but do they have to give something back? Not in terms of money, but in terms of other things, like whether they need to make a report or something like that.
Well, it's when we work with a school, it's as Caitlin said, we give the laptops, and then it becomes they have ownership over the program in the sense that teachers are invested. They're spending time with us in teacher training sessions. They're spending time with us developing lessons around the XO, and for us, a really great. The feedback loop comes back to us by way of research, and that's what we found is also so critical, just being able to document the efficacy of this program, both in a qualitative sense, so understanding the ways that attitudes change towards learning, the way that students change their mindset in terms of collaboration versus one-on-one versus student-teacher interaction, all the way through more quantitative means of understanding how technology in the classroom affects how well you do and how well you're performing. And so for us, that's been the biggest payoff of being able to work in classes, understanding how this works.
Beyond just the age group of kindergarten or primary kids in Hong Kong, is there a specific target group that you target for the kids in Hong Kong? Or do you kind of aim at going to every school in Hong Kong? Is there specific special schools that you look for?
Yeah, no, of course. That's a great question. So in Hong Kong specifically, I think that the younger demographic is where this is really the best target area, and that's something that we talked about with TK at the beginning, whether it made sense to go into an older end of go with older students or younger students, and really the younger students, the kindergarten age students, it seemed to make the most sense for us, both in terms of how amenable teachers and administrators would be. So it would be less, when there's less pressure on perhaps testing at the end of the day or the classroom time, there's more flexibility to allow students to engage in a more creative and open form of learning when they're younger. And then in terms of schools that we were choosing and our desire to expand, another fantastic question. We were targeting elementary schools that were in more disadvantaged areas, and so where students would not have access to the types of technology that we've been floating, the iPad or the Mac or whatever the latest technology is. So we wanted to go to more disadvantaged areas, and I think that scaling is something that TK can also speak to, whether it would make sense to scale to more communities in this area, or whether we address other regions that might benefit from this, and so I will defer to him on expansion plans.
Okay, so maybe one more question, but maybe we let this two-child demo, because as you're talking, they have already created a game. You can click and let them look. They took some photo of the grandma, and then they actually type in the word. So actually they have already created it. Show it to them. Show it to them. You come, they become right, so this is a picture of her, right? So she has to search for someone, Isabella. There's Isabella 1 and Isabella 2. I wonder. Good, huh?
And TK, do you want to take the last part of that question, just the expansion and...
You have a question?
Yeah, just one more question. Do you have any plan to work with other content generation organizations? For example, like Khan Academy or like the Hole in the Wall?
We don't, and if you have suggestions for that, we would greatly appreciate it. That's been, I think, one of the more difficult areas. Ultimately, to be sustainable, you want to be crowdsourcing online, just pooling as many people together to be able to customize the lesson plans, revitalize them, continue to build that library out, because it's just not something that our organization can sustain long term. So any thoughts that you have around that, we would truly appreciate.
Yeah, like Khan Academy or MIT, they have a lot of like open source courseware over there.
They do and they don't. A lot of the stuff that we've seen that's open source is at the university level. There's not a lot of great curriculum development online for the primary level, even on into the secondary level. Plus, we do deal with such diverse geographic sites that, curriculum differs quite a lot. So it expands the kind of the area that we're playing in. So it's tough to meet all of those needs just as a small organization of 20 people. Any other questions?
About your organization, how many of them among the 20 people are Tennessee staff?
Oh, that's a great question. It floats between 3 and 5. So with all of our deployments, we try to have at least 1 to 2 folks with us who are technical. In Nicaragua, we had a couple of folks who came and set up the server, wireless internet, did a lot of logistics. Just what I caught, a couple of folks in here actually who helped us with the Hong Kong deployment. So Kevin over there and Kelvin in the corner right here were absolutely phenomenal in helping with the server, helping with any issues that came up, even to the point of dragging the suitcases full of laptops to the school with us. They were instrumental in the deployment. We absolutely couldn't have done it without TK. So in this case, we ended up getting our technical staff from our partnering organization, OLPC Asia. And that was that helped us and cut costs also in coming over here, and like I said, they were absolutely phenomenal. So we couldn't have asked for better tech support on this project.
Any more questions? I'm an impromptu moderator.
And playing the game also treated by the two kids.
Okay, very good discussion, very intellectual, critical, and creative questions. Now we have TK to present his presentation.
Yeah, I mean, as I say, I'm ready because what I want is discussion going, not just a talk and then after that, bye-bye, So if I speak for 1 minute, it's fine with me.
Okay.
But anyway, so the topic is about voluntourism. So I'd like to really touch on that one because after hearing the two speakers, the next thing we ask, what can we actually do? Okay, so let's start with this little about Hold on. Okay, so we are looking for hearts, heads, and hands, right? So it's just like the explorer curiosity. We really want people here who have the hearts and the heads and the hands to actually help out. And you'll be asking, okay, what actually do we do as a volunteer, okay? So I think, Loretta, you recognize this photo. In fact, this is one 2009, where they had a local camp for the ISAC, international university students, where they actually tried to raise some fund. So the question I'm asking that, can Hong Kong students make a difference in Asia? Okay, we have programs, we have people coming over from overseas, we have expertise, we can crowdsource, but you still need people to actually make a difference, to deploy, to do whatever you need to do. Okay, so my question is, can Hong Kong students make a difference? So I want you to think a bit, about your own experience with your students. Can they actually make a difference in Hong Kong? Okay, so what about EduVolunteerism? Okay, so I'll just give you some example what we have here in Hong Kong. In fact, this picture is one of the first picture that we had. I think Benson is there. He was one of the person whom I recruited. I say, well, I need somebody who is more technical to help me understand how to get a school server working. So this is actually the school server that was sent to Sichuan. And then here we have the photo whereby we have 4 Hong Kong U students. I think Loretta, you remember? They came for the meeting and said that they were in Sichuan for to do some buildings. And then we need help because Sichuan had 1,000 computers coming. And to unload and load is not easy. And I think here we have 2 or 3 Sichuan volunteers who were there for the deployment. Philip, you were there, right? Right. So Without that 4 volunteers, you'll be walking up and down much more, right?
Basically, we're forming a human train transport.
So this is really giving your hands, not your head, but well, the fact that you have a chain would be a good example of problem solving, okay? And then actually what we have here is what we call fundraising proposal by student. I don't know why I keep getting this one. So what I'm going to show it to you now is that just to give you an idea, if you're a volunteer, what kind of things you'll be doing. And I'll just show you a video of a recent, we call it redeployment, okay? We have to redeploy the 1,000 EXO because there was some changes in the institution. They had a new school, and then we get back all the computers and we redeploy it again. So you may be asking, why did the children not have the computer? They should be given to the kids. It should be owned by the kids. But in all departments, even in Hong Kong, it's always that when the organization get something, they like to keep it and having control over who should take it home and who should not take it home. So we found out that the kids were given the computer to take it home, and then there was some instructions by the school that, well, we'd like to collect it back so that we can see how things are going, right? So we went back after a year to find out, what can we do to improve the situation and to redeploy it. And this is, let me see. I'm getting a bit old. Okay. So this is like a movie. So again, all these are done by volunteers, and I think the person who took this is a lecturer in CTU. So when he took his nice little camera and start to shoot, and then as it is, when we shoot, we start to check. We had 1,000 of the computers back. We have to reflash it. Reflash 1,000. So this is the time frame, in fact, we did. So actually giving your hands, right? So you can see that we are piling up there, and then we have a little reminder how many we have flashed, how many is working, and how many is not working. All right? Okay? So this is something that we need people to do that one. Then, even more. First exposure. Day 3. So we actually went back to the school and recollected it, and then we start to see how we can redistribute it to other schools. This is the teacher's training. Doing the memory game. Teaching Scratch. This is Anthony Wong, the chairperson of the One Laptop Asia. So actually teaching them how to program in Scratch. Right? You see Chinese? They're typing in Chinese. And a lot of volunteers here, only 2 or 3 of them are students. The majority are working people who have to take leave off, buy their own ticket to be part of the program. Right? Showing what they have done. So I think around 10 of us, that is the second trip that we went back. In fact, they went up for teachers training twice, main deployment 2 times. So this is the last day for that one. But I show you the second day, which should be much more interesting because they'll be doing something very unexpected. Right? Day 2, okay? A lot of them were volunteers from Sichuan. Some are very technical people. So can you see, we are just teaching them how to flash the computer. And we have Henry, he's a programmer from Hong Kong. Right? So the volunteers actually came. And we have to wash and clean the laptops. We took some towel from the hotel, we took some soap, and then we actually scrub it. And you see it? So some of the volunteers say, I need to scrub it. Right? Repack it again. Some of the boxes are still there, some of the boxes are not there. And then we have a teacher's training program. So we have a volunteer tagging with a teacher. And I remember, Kevin, you tagging this lady. Right? And this is the teacher. In fact, I found this teacher to be very, very good. So after work, like all things, we have some exercise, and then we have the Sichuan. Good memory, right? So this is, if you are going on deployment, if you're lucky, you might have this kind of treatment after work. You have good food, right? So for the 3 days after work, we have food, and we had only 1 hour visit. The Ministry of Education said that you work all very hard, we should give you some break. So they actually got a bus for us, and then we went to visit one historical site. So that was for 1 hour, and after that we were back on the plane, back to Hong Kong again. Okay? So just to give you an idea of what we actually do. So the key question now is that, in fact, I want to show you another one to you. Basically, the fundraising proposal did by the students, okay? Now, just to give you an idea of what the students actually have in mind. So this was a competition among various universities where they formed groups and come up with a proposal how to fundraise money for OLPC, okay? So let's look at the, we look at the champion. This is the runner champion, okay? So this is the video that they use to present, but they actually have an actual write-up. So something like what you do in Harvard, where you have to present what you have done. So this is the idea.
Now, one laptop per child age of the Tibet was set up to give laptops to kids here. But wait, laptops, money. We need money. How do we get it? We found something interesting. Tuition centers, here, lots of them, rush to these centers every day after school. In China, Japan, Taiwan, Hong Kong, all over Asia. So what are these kids looking for? Math problems, and more. Why is it a torture? It's a curriculum. Compared to Western education, Asian math is known to be much more demanding. All the families have money, laptops, money, laptops. Great! So why don't we give them what they need, and they give us what we need? So here's a model. Set up a website and provide fun math education. Get the math online happen, and create donations for what's happening. So not talking about how, let's talk about what a website has. Basically, there's a game. Kids do math and solve really fast. For example, the grade 1 student does a set of these questions, he'll get an answer he wants. And if he doesn't have a set, he'll get a keyboard. Of course, for senior students, the question will be harder. Gradually, the student will accumulate a set of computer parts, which will form computers. The website will tell them how many computers they've donated. They will also get a feature, like Mathpedia, database of mathematics and logic, and Ask Math, where students can ask about math problems. These features can facilitate the exchange of mathematical knowledge among regions today. So we now have a website and a feature. Still, where does our money come from? We generate donations in two ways, advertisements and subscription fees. Our website opens free materials to the public. Everyone can click on the web and enjoy our service. While our site becomes more and more popular and more students visit our site, we create advertising opportunities. There are a lot of companies targeting students as their customers. They have verticals, banners, videos, or anything on our website. Companies can then promote the right products to the right people, and we gain funds for renting advertisement fee. On the other hand, we will extend the campaign to primary and secondary schools. We will jointly organize an online art competition with the Education Board every year and invite local schools to join us. Every student joining the competition will get an account on our site by donating a minimum of $20 yearly subscription fee. We encourage students to get additional sponsorship from families as well, for charity. There will be rankings of students and schools they come from, and winners will get prizes. The concept is we collect a small amount of money from a lot of people and we end up having a large amount of fun. So, why our plan? 3 reasons. 1. Low cost. We only have to set up a website and we can cooperate with OLPC's partners in many aspects. Cost, low. Risk, low. With these, we can, however, create a lot of funds. According to our estimates, an initial investment of $80,000 can bring nearly $3 million in the first year. $3 million! That would be 3,000 laptops. And the running cost is only $40,000 a year. 2. Continuous and expandable. Do Mass of Asia is no other one-off campaign that gives you some millions and then the end. We generate continuous funds to OLPC every year as our website is funded. Also, the campaign can be easily expanded to other countries in Asia Pacific and Africa looks pretty much similar, and everything can be done on the internet. With such a low cost, the campaign that can absolutely run without work financially. With the expansion, the amount raised can double, and double. You may think that we are too optimistic, and you are worrying about participation or OLPC cannot handle the project, but no worries, our campaign is absolutely feasible. We will coordinate with schools directly and let them encourage students to participate. And Asian schools are always enthusiastic in school competition, such as mathematics Olympiad. Also, considering our charitable nature, it won't be too difficult to persuade each other to contribute only like $20 a year. I mean, we don't even buy a dollar for $20. Lastly, we don't need a lot of people to manage our website, and we can further lower costs by getting governmental support and recruiting volunteers. All in all, everything is well within our control. So, what's the conclusion? We're proudly saying that Do Mass of Asia catches a big fundraising opportunity